Hello, 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 good people out there on the YouTubes. We are back. It's been a while since we had a good little chat together. My good folks on the YouTube. Let's see who we got in the building here. We got some folks trickling in. Got some folks trickling in. And, I hope, first of all, we haven't done a live stream since last year. I'm going to be one of those weird people that say, you know how, like right before the New Year's, you go home for like, I don't know, your little New Year's vacation, whatever. And the last thing someone says on like December 30th or something is like, see you next year. Ha, 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 ha. And I think that's really funny. Yeah, I'm going to be that weird guy that says, we haven't done a live stream since last year, when really that's just a couple weeks ago. A few weeks ago, however long last year was. But it is technically true that we did not do a live stream since last year. So I'm glad to be back with you. Now, if you saw my show notes, or if you saw my little, not show notes, but if you saw the comments in my live stream, oh, there's low volume. Let's see. There always seems to be something to that effect plaguing my my stream. Let me know if how's the volume right now, because right now, my meters, if I could let you see them, which I can't, they are near blaring. They're really pretty hot. So I don't know how to fix that. How's my volume? I see Blue Arrow saying I got an issue with volume. Hopefully. Oh, volume sounds good. Thank you. All right. Because I was going to say, there's no way I could start off once again with bad volume. So in any case, what I'm hoping to do today is maybe we had our Candace detox. I hope you appreciated our Candace detox. Because the Candace detox is essential. And we're going to talk a little bit about Candace today, but we're not going to spend the majority of our time talking about Candace. But I wanted to talk with you, really the reason how we're going to talk about Candace and basically this update. And listen, I am a realist. I know that you probably are watching Candace content when you're not watching my show. Shame on you. But I understand it. I understand it. I understand why you keep it. At least I'm keeping my ears low to the ground on the Candy episodes. At least I'm not watching them, but I'm on the Twitters or X or whatever you call it. I'm on the other social media type situations and just getting updates here and there. So I get it, right? You want to at least stay abreast of what's happening. And what's actually happening is exactly what I thought would happen, which is precisely nothing. Candy doing more of the same. Candy doing the thing that she does, which is lie and gaslight. And I think if you're familiar with what Candy's been doing as of late, what we have is a clear situation where Candy has been she's suffering from audience capture. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase audience capture. Let me get comfy in my chair here. Not too comfy. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase audience capture, but audience capture is kind of it's a weird term because it means kind of the opposite of what you think it means. The way it sounds is that it's talking about, oh, my mic's really crooked. What it sounds like it's talking about is someone who's captured a certain audience, right? Audience capture, right? But it's exactly the opposite. It's actually not that a person is capturing their audience, but that their audience is capturing them. And this is a bad sign. The reason why it's a bad sign is because Now the audience is controlling what you can say and what you don't say and what you cover and what you talk about based on the expectations that you have set. So basically, it's almost like you can think of it like this. It's like something that I always tell my kids, and something my wife and I reinforce to ourselves all the time, is that you teach people how to treat you, right? So in other words, if someone disrespects you, right, or if someone mistreats you, or they do something that's out of bounds and you don't address it, then what you're saying to them is that it's okay to treat you that way. And then once you continue to allow that, now you've basically instantiated that it's okay to disrespect you, it's okay to abuse you, it's okay to do those things. So basically you have just reinforced their negative behavior towards you, right? So this is what we mean when we say you teach people how to treat you. And by the way, can you guys see me? Because I think I've got something different. I'm kind of monitoring the live stream, but can you see my actual face? Put a comment in the chat, or one in the chat, or a heart in the chat, something, if you can see my actual face, because something looks odd about this. Let me see here. Okay. I just had to be sure. I just had to be sure because I'm getting some odd stuff going on here. By the way, sorry for you guys for my noviceness when it comes to live streaming. But anyway, let's get back to the issue. The issue that when we talk about teaching people how to treat you, right? You reinforce negative behaviors if, in fact, you don't correct them right away, right? So when it comes to media, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to anything where you have an audience, you have to at least establish that that you're not going to be controlled by them. So if, in fact, you start talking about something, right, and you have a certain perspective, and then your perspective starts to shift on that issue, right? Or you start to get negative comments about a certain perspective that you've expressed. And so then now you start to tailor your content, or you tailor your opinions, or you tailor whatever it is that you're doing or you're saying to accommodate other people's ideas and opinions, right? And then all of a sudden you curate for yourself a bunch of people who expect you to say a certain thing. And then if you shift the way you think, or if you start doing something different, now you stand to lose a massive amount of your audience. And this is what I think has happened to Candace Owens. Now, I want to play a little bit of this just to get an idea of how bad it is, because Candace has basically, she's been completely off her rocker and talking about dreams, and just, it became, shout out to Milk Bar TV, by the way, because Milk Bar TV, if you're not subscribed to Milk Bar TV, this is like basically mandatory. You should go subscribe to him right now. But Milk Bar TV, he does these compilations, easily, the best compilations. Oh, wait. All right, well, let's go back here. All right, let's see if I can get this up here, up and going. But Milk Bar TV is easily the probably the best compiler of video cuts and edits and stuff like the stuff to that effect, where you get Candace Owens basically just owning herself every single time, and doing and saying things that are just completely absurd. And he's got this edit of her talking about how much she relies on these dreams. And I'm going to try this one more time. Let's see if I can get this on there. Well, that's not working. Let's go back. All right. I tell you what, if I have a live stream where everything goes well, it's at that point where I'm going to be completely and utterly shocked, right? Because, at this point, really at this point, it's just reaching kind of absurd levels. All right. Now let's see what we have here. All right. Now we have Candy. All right. So this is Milk Bar TV, and this is him with a supercut of just how much of Candace's content depends on dreams. And then we're going to come back and talk about why this is important.
On one episode, Candace said that she had a dream. This must just all be crazy rantings. Every day, Candace is up on this show like Miss Cleo from the 90s and just like predicting what she thinks happened. It's such a ridiculous way to try to delegitimize the research that we have done. I rarely have vivid dreams, and I did, in fact, have a very vivid one over the weekend. Charlie came to me and he told me that he was betrayed. And I don't know who exactly it is that betrayed him, but I also felt in the dream that it is soon going to be revealed. Which brings me to dreams, by the way. A dream that I had, a very vivid dream, whereupon Charlie told me that he had been betrayed. And so he's been betrayed, that's it. I had a dream. And like I said, this one was clear. Charlie told me that he was betrayed. He actually said more than that, actually. But, we're fishing, right? So let's be patient. Loving your emails, telling me about your dreams. People in Turning Point had dreams. There was one young woman who emailed me and said, Candace, I just have to tell you, the week leading up to this, I had a very vivid dream about so-and-so at the company and 6 snakes that were around him. There was many people who dreamed, for whatever reason, the number 6 was in their dreams in terms of the weapon, whatever it was 6 that was appearing. And so I'm kind of going by a vibe that there may be 6 people who betrayed him by the end of this, because there was one too many dreams to that effect from people around the world. I've been telling you guys, I have been having a lot of dreams. Pulled my children out of school. I was having this dreams and visions about bees. They laughed at me. Oh, you had a dream. Charlie told you he was, Charlie told me that he was betrayed.
Repeatedly saying he was.
First of all, I shout out to Nathan at Milk Bar, because this music that he's got almost like this, kind of like almost like this monk music, like meditation. Like I was like, it's this odd, eerie thing that he's got just rolling under the footage there that just makes it just perfect, because it highlights how absurd this is. But let's continue.
Quote, betrayed by, quote, everyone.
Sorry, that was a dream that I had. And mocking us for saying that we had dreams that Charlie was betrayed, or rather mocking me. Many people actually had dreams and they email me them all the time. They're just going on vibes in a dream on the Candace show. That's it. She had a dream and now she's just blindly pointing the finger at everybody. The medical examiner, Dr. Gidra Smith Amaro, also someone that in my dream, Charlie told me I should look into. Literally woke my husband up at 4 a.m. in the morning and I said, I just had a dream that we have to look into the Wilkes brothers. I had another vivid dream. The dream was so vivid. It was like, if you've ever seen Harry Potter, and like when they had like the chessboard scene and they're having a wizard war, but they're playing a game of chess. Ben was one of the pieces. So the question becomes, who exactly is making these terrible PR decisions? Like, who thinks, yeah, what we need to do today is we have to attack the dream. Just go at it and do not let up on the dream. I think it's someone who feels personally victimized by the dream. Show of hands, who feels personally victimized by Candace Owens' dreams? Today, I feel that it is time to tell you the entirety of the repeat dream that I was having in those early weeks. Charlie and I went to Israel together when he was eating hummus. He's like, this is the best hummus I've ever tasted in my life. We were there in this dream setting for Bibi Netanyahu's wife's funeral. That's just the context of it. I I don't make the rules of dream world. And obviously, as we were sitting there, it didn't strike me as weird because when you're in your dream state, everything that happens for some reason feels like, oh yeah, this is totally normal. You know when you're in a dream and you go, who, or you try to speak in the dream, and then suddenly you're actually speaking in real life and you start to wake yourself up from the dream by accident? That's what kept happening. Whenever I would try to listen to what he was saying, it sounded like he was underwater. So I was frustrated by this. I can't get to the part where you tell me who betrayed you. It wasn't until the third week after his death that finally one face came through in this dream. It came through as clear as day from around the corner of the restaurant. And it was Andrew Colvet's. I said I rarely have vivid dreams, but I had one clear as day this weekend. Charlie came to me. I believe his soul is in purgatory, and I believe that you know much more than you've said publicly or privately. And Andrew Colvet never answered. Yeah, Andrew Colvet, I think my dream might have meant something, and that's why you've been completely freaked since. To come for Candace Owens and to try to paint her as a crazy person because she had a dream, and I'm sticking with the dream. To have people then mock me for saying that I had a dream, it is so deep. It is a knowing. It's not even a feeling. It's a knowing. It's not a dream to me. It's like a prophecy. It's like Charlie was betrayed. I don't know what else to say to you, but I encourage you all to dream. My dreams have been positive, and I know when the world learns the truth, it is going to have a drastic effect upon humanity.
All right. So that's Candace Owens' dream, okay? Now, I wanted to show you that. There again, shout out to Milk Bar TV. Please go subscribe to Milk Bar if you want to have all the latest and greatest, because this guy is like a internet video sleuth. I mean, the guy, I don't know how he does it. It feels like he has a staff of like 100 people. I don't know how he gets all this content, but in any case, let's just talk about this, why she is so reliant on dreams. Let's just think about it just from a standpoint of evidentiary argumentation, right? When you have, there's a saying, I think I heard Ted Cruz say this one time. He says, when you got the facts on your side, you pound the facts. When you got the law on your side, you pound the law. And when you have neither, you pound the table. Right? If you've ever heard that kind of phrase, right? When you have the facts, you don't need dreams. You don't need premonitions. You don't need, vibes. You don't need, I don't know, but I know. You don't need any of that crap because you have the facts. And in our society, thankfully, in order to accuse people and convict people of serious crimes and serious moral lapses in judgment or serious evil, you have to have actual facts. Responsible people do not go around throwing around information about people when they don't have the facts, or accusations, I should say, because it's not information if you don't actually know what you're talking about, if it's not verified information. So the question is, you see the extent. I think, Nathan, and that goes all the way back to October. So for the last 3 months, she's been coming back to these dreams. And the question is why? Why is she coming back to the dreams? Well, it's like I just mentioned. Obviously, the first issue is that she doesn't actually have any information that is solid. She doesn't have any information that you can rely on that says, all right, this is the truth. Right. So I'm trying to fix my microphone here. So let's see here. So that's the first thing. That's a red flag. You talk about the dreams because you don't have any information. But what really is interesting about this whole thing is that she keeps coming back to talking about Charlie, and we're like, I mean, that happened September the 10th, right? So we're solid. What's that? October, November, December, January. So we're 4 months past it. And nobody's really, to be quite honest. Now my mic's kind of distorting here. Sorry. No one. I apologize, guys. I have to get this mic right. No one is actually still really talking about Charlie like that. I know that this is a kind of a big deal. I know this is a big situation with Charlie. Charlie is, for some people it's still kind of fresh. For some people it's still pretty traumatizing. But for the most part, we're kind of moving on to other things. But notice that Candace can't let it go. And the reason why she can't let it go, and the reason why she keeps coming back to these dreams, is because if Candace stops talking about Charlie, her whole audience is going to go away. Do you remember maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, whenever that was, where she was bragging about how she had the #1 podcast in the world? It was like, oh, now we're #1. We're #1 worldwide. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That's something that really matters to you, does it? Interesting. You see, when you put a lot of emphasis on stuff like that, then when you lose it, you know that it means a lot to you. It's kind of like, it's interesting. Like as an athlete, I always, when I do my regular videos, I always start my little tagline. I'm Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, gutter of buckets, right? So I played college basketball. I played sports all my life. And so one of the things that's important about athletes, that one thing we know, is that when people start talking about how many points they scored and they start talking about their personal stats, they're telling you what's important to them, right? Because the best athletes never talk about how many points they score. The best athletes never talk about the stat sheet. The best athletes talk about winning. Because the objective is to win. The objective is not, look at me. No one sits there bragging about their scoring average. That's not what, at least they don't do it. Put it this way. They don't do that publicly. Maybe they'll do it privately and stuff like that. Maybe they'll toot their own horn. But publicly, the public facing kind of, facade or aura that they want to project is that they want to say, I want to be known for winning, not stuffing the stat sheets. And when people start talking about that stuff, they're telling you what's important to them. So Candace is telling us plainly what's important to her. What's important to her is that she's climbing up the stats, she's climbing up the charts, and she did it on the back of salacious lies and gossip and innuendo. And if she stops talking about it, because she's never delivered the goods, despite all of her evidence, despite all her Egyptian plane nonsense, and the French government and the Israeli government and the Mormon beekeepers and all of this stuff, despite all of the so-called evidence that she's presented, she hasn't actually presented anything of substance. So she is stuck in a hamster wheel. And it's kind of sad to see. That she's going back to these dreams. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to prognosticate that Candace has got maybe another month or two doing this crap before people really, even her most dyed-in-the-wool hardcore fans and sycophants, before they start to say, you know what? The dreams and the time traveler stuff and all of that stuff, I just need something more. I just need something more with that. I can't go another 3-4 months when you talking about another dream or another premonition or I don't know, but I know. And what's going to happen when Candace is she's no longer, let's say, #1 in the world? As a matter of fact, this is something that I wanted to check out here. How many of you know anything about something called Social Blade? Have you ever heard of Social Blade? Put a comment in the chat if you ever heard of Social Blade. Social Blade is an interesting website, because Social Blade is where you can go to see people's stats, like their views. It's all basically anyone's like views and things of that nature, their kind of presence on social media. It's effectively all public information. And so I want to have a quick look at Candace Owens to see how her podcast has been doing as of late. This is interesting. This is very, very interesting. All right. Okay. So this is all right. This is going to be something that you are going to be interested in taking a look at, because here, let's see here. Here, check this out. All right. So look at this. Now, what we're looking at, let me just explain what we're looking at. This is Candace Owens' monthly gained subscribers, right, over time. So if you look at this chart here over on the left, this is, I don't know what this means here. I guess this is probably, this goes back to 2023. I don't exactly know when Candace Owens got fired from the Daily Wire, but so this basically starts in earnest in June of 2024. Okay, so let's just say this is about the time she started getting rolling when she left the Daily Wire. So you see, initially she had a big jump in subscribers, right? And this is basically like kind of monthly and things of that nature. Okay, so she's cooking, and then you notice a big drop in her subscribership after April of 2025, right? So this was, I think, on the back end of the Brigitte Macron stuff, right? This big spike here, I think, is when she started on the Brigitte Macron stuff, talking about, the French president's wife has a penis, okay? And then you see this big dip here, this big dip. Lull. The dog days of summer, whatever the situation is. And then she was basically at an all-time low in August of 2025, and this was a month before Charlie Kirk was killed. And then Charlie was assassinated. And you see this huge jump, this huge spike in subscribers directly following. That's in September of 2025. And then you see this precipitous decline once again. And so this goes through December of 2025. And now we're back to an all-time low. So it's not going to have January numbers, obviously, until January of 2026 is over. But you see, she was already on a decline. Now, if we try to look at her views, she still has pretty high view numbers, right? But my point that I'm making is that Candace is actually, this only goes through, November? October? Okay, so not really compiling the views for the end of the year here so much. But my guess is that that's a significant decline as well. I wonder why it doesn't show. Oh, okay. Let's go here. Okay, there we go. Through December. Okay, so still a lot of views, but you see the subscribers, not so much. It's kind of tailing off. My point is that I'm going to prognosticate that she's got about, after the first quarter of this year, come end of March, January, February, March, yes. We're going to see some drops in viewership, but she's going to have to find something else to talk about, because I think people are done with the dream stuff and the so-called evidence that isn't really evidence. All right, so I did want to talk with you something about that. I want to share something that I think you might find interesting, because I want to talk with you actually about the dreams. Because on the one hand, Candace Owens' dream situation is bizarre. But I don't want to give people the impression that this is something that is kooky or spooky or something that is completely impossible. Because God he can, and he has, and he does still, I think, speak to people through dreams. I want to share something with you, and I want to just give you an idea of the difference between what it looks like when someone is receiving something that I believe is actually meaningful and that comes from God, and when, there's the Candace situation where she's basically, I think, whatever dreams she's having is demonic. That's what I believe. I don't believe that God is giving her these dreams. Now, you might say, I know that most of the people that listen to my program and programs like it are saying, well, of course it's demonic because Candace is bad. I understand that sentiment, but we want to root this in something a little more objective, if you will. Okay. So let me just lay this out for you to give you an idea. Now, many, many years ago, my wife had a dream that was pretty disturbing. Okay. And it goes a little something like this. We had some friends of ours, married couple, and they had kids together, but one of the kids was a child from this woman, from the wife's previous marriage or previous relationship. I don't know if she was married, but anyway, she had a daughter, young teenager. Well, my wife told me this dream one day. She said, I had a dream that, I'm not going to say the couple's names, but she said, I had a dream that so-and-so's daughter, somebody was abusing her sexually. Okay. All right. I hope I can say that without YouTube flagging this video. Okay. Someone was abusing her, and I could tell she was really bothered by it. And she didn't tell me all of it at first, right? And then she came back and she gave me some more information. She said, remember that dream I told you about? She said, well, the person that was abusing this girl in my dream was the father. So in other words, this married couple, it was the guy in the situation, and he was abusing, in her dream, this girl who was the daughter of his wife, right? So his stepdaughter. Okay, when you hear something like that, obviously the first thing is, okay, that's crazy. But it wasn't you have to understand, it wasn't proof that anything had happened, but she had this dream. So my wife just, first of all, what do you do with that information? You can't go to like the cops with that, right? You can't say, hey, we need you to investigate this situation because my wife had a dream. They can't do that. And obviously, something that delicate, something that serious, something that egregious, something where the ramifications are so incredible, right? You can't just go willy-nilly blabbing that out, or even going directly to the person and just accusing them. You just can't do that. Okay, that's just not going to work. Now, so my wife started talking to her friend, right? My wife started talking to her friend and says, let me see. I'm just trying to read some of these chats here. I'll come back to the chat here in a second. But my wife said, I'm going to talk to her friend, right? And she just kind of probing a little bit, just like, hey, everything all right? Everything all good? I had this, and she said, I had this dream, and she kind of gave us some of the information. Like, I had this dream, that somebody was, molesting your daughter. Now, she didn't say who. She did not say that. She didn't tell. But she put that out there. Well, fast forward, long story short, it was true. It ended up being true that's what was happening. And, I'm just leaving out a lot of details, but what ended up happening was, she ended up going, they ended up going eventually to the cops. And now this gentleman that was doing that, he's in prison. He's going to be in prison for a long time because of this. Now, why do I tell you that story? I tell you that story because I can tell you that God does speak through dreams. He can speak through dreams. And in that situation, the way you take that information as a person who's been in a situation where my wife has been literally had something divinely revealed to her about what was happening to this girl, and it ended up being true. And I believe that the reason why actually God even showed us is because even and we didn't have all the extent of it, right? We didn't know like how bad it was, and nothing of that. We just, we had that information. And I think that there was even a chance that, before he had gone too far, there might have been a chance for there to be some kind of redemption, or for him to take a step back, and maybe he would have gotten in trouble still. It would have still been bad, but it wouldn't have been because this guy, I don't know, he's probably going to be in jail for decades. I don't even know. I hope he doesn't get out I don't even know how long his sentence was. But anyway, these were friends of ours, and that was difficult. So my point is that when God reveals that situation, when he gives these divine revelations through dreams, it's for his purposes, not for you to go out and exploit it and make, all of these salacious accusations without any proof. Because we never told a single person about that dream until it was actually confirmed that he had done it. Now, see, that's the difference between what happened with us and what Candace is doing. Because Candace is going out here and she's talking about Andrew Colvett. And I saw Andrew Colvett, and Charlie told me that he was betrayed by Andrew Colvett, or something to that effect. And not a single shred of evidence does she have. So the point that I'm making is that how do you know that someone is not telling the truth? Or how do you know someone's abusing this so-called dream thing? Because you don't go public with information when you don't have any proof. You just don't do that. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is we got that information and we ended up working it to where it was how we got them to confide and confess that there were some things going on. And, there again, I'm leaving a lot of the story out. But the point is that Candace is exploiting this situation for her benefit. And this is why I don't believe she's getting any revelations from God. This is not a God-sent dream. The other thing that I think is important to understand is that Candace is out here saying that Charlie visited her. And this is necromancy. Okay? Necromancy is not something that believers or people should be doing, because communication with the dead in the Bible is expressly forbidden. So when you're talking about communicating with the dead, if someone tells you that their dead loved one visited them, that's not their dead loved one. That's actually a demon. So there's that, right? We didn't have dream. God didn't give my wife a dream about a dead person. God gave my wife a dream about people who were living, and the dream that she had impact on people who are alive. And it was about people who are alive. She didn't, wasn't the dead daughter visiting from the grave saying my stepdad molested and threw me in a ditch. Okay. So this is how you know. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I don't want people to think that, because Candace, and this is just like anything. It's just like some of these hyper charismatic people, exploiting all of this stuff about the supernatural, saying, oh, God's going to heal you. I got this divine revelation. They're throwing the Holy Spirit like a baseball, and people are falling out and passing out. And then people think it's a joke. And now people think that God he doesn't heal, or God doesn't do the miraculous anymore, when really it's these people who are abusing these things that are making people lose confidence in the genuine article. And so I just wanted to say, don't do that. Just because Candace is doing low life stuff doesn't mean that God doesn't move in that way, and that he can't. Okay. Let me see if I can read a few comments here. Somebody's accusing people of being a bot. All right, let's talk. Okay, so this is another thing too, because I get a lot of people. I have to say this. Y'all pray for me, if you will, because I get so frustrated with these NPCs, these brain dead people, always saying that if we have some opinion against Candace or against Tucker or against Megyn Kelly or whoever, it's like, oh, you get your $7,000 from Israel, you're doing Bibi Netanyahu, Israel. I just have to tell you guys, I have no patience for that crap. I really do, and I think I crossed the line a lot when I talk to these people in my comments. If you ever see a really nasty comment on one of my videos from me, it's almost undoubtedly that I'm talking to one of these brain dead NPC, you got $7,000 from Bibi Netanyahu people. I just pray for your boy, okay? All right. I really, so is there somebody in the chat basically accusing you of being either a bot or you got $7,000 from Israel? Just ignore that foolishness. All right. What do we got here? All right. Now I got to get back here. Oh, I got you. Okay. So there's that. Now I want to shift to something here that I think is important here. I thought about maybe talking a little bit about the Minnesota situation. I think that's important, but I want to talk a little bit about Tucker. Again, shout out to Milk Bar TV, because that guy, once again, he's a sleuth. And I want to look at this, because one of the things that I haven't been covering this, and I am going to cover it a little bit more in some of my other non-live videos. But the situation in Venezuela and Maduro, right, with President Trump, and Tucker Carlson is quite a piece of work. Him and Megyn Kelly now have become the dynamic duo of lunacy, of faux conservatism. People who are, I think, morally compromised, people who we can't trust. And so I want to have a look at this video. This is, there again, from Milk Bar TV. This is Tucker versus Tucker. I like this. I like the framing of this. Tucker versus Tucker, right? Tucker versus himself. Because, Tucker's biggest opponent is Tucker just 10 minutes ago. Okay? No one can refute Tucker Carlson like the past version of Tucker Carlson. So let's have a look at this video and see what we can glean from it. Let me see here. All right.
Venezuela tonight. Like every other country that has adopted socialism, Venezuela has collapsed inevitably into dire poverty and chaos. Shortages there are universal. Inflation is now in the triple digits. And despite the world's largest oil reserves, that country can't even keep its lights on. Things are so bad At this very moment, the country is plunging into civil disorder as thousands of demonstrators clash with security forces of the president there, Nicolas Maduro. But there's another lesson in Venezuela besides the failure of socialism. In 2012, that country banned the private purchase of firearms and ammunition and launched a massive campaign to disarm the civilian population. That wasn't accidental. You can see where this is going. Faced with the demands that he relinquish power and hold free elections there, President Maduro has decided to unleash armed supporters, their guns weren't taken away, on his disarmed populace. On Monday, Maduro announced his plans to expand the country's civil militia from 100,000 to 500,000. Every member gets a gun. The intent is clear. If he and his cronies can't stay in power forever, they will do so with the force of arms, and the masses who have no guns don't stand a chance. Remember that the next time your liberal friends extol the virtues of a gun-free society.
Maduro most.
Now that was Tucker in 2017. Okay. All right. So now let's listen to Tucker now.
People didn't know this. Whatever his many faults, I wouldn't hire him as an economist. Okay. But whatever his many faults, it has the most socially conservative country probably in the hemisphere. So Venezuela is just a fact. I mean, I didn't make this up. I'm not in charge of Venezuela. Just noticing that Venezuela has banned pornography, banned abortion, banned gay marriage, banned sex changes, and banned usury. You don't have credit cards with 40% interest in Venezuela. I would personally become poorer to end abortion, voluntarily become poorer to end abortion in the United States. That's not a choice. Don't want to become poorer, but I would because I care about it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're offended that I do, but I care about it. Lots of people care about it. I don't think pornography is good. That really hurts people. You know, I don't think pretending that the sexes are the same is good. And you claimed that you didn't think it was good, but it turns out, quote, I don't give a shit. Maduro's against Israel. Oh, okay.
And then he throws in the Israel thing like that has absolutely anything to do with the situation in Venezuela. Venezuela being against Israel is literally completely irrelevant. But I wanted to show you that because I want you to understand why people like Tucker are so dangerous. And I want to give you maybe a rubric, maybe one other, basically a way to understand how to parse the error of people like Tucker. Because Tucker has a very distinct kind of error that you have to be aware of. It's very different from the error that we see on the left. Let me show you one other thing to try to drive this point home. This is something that I saw on X. And this says, this may be putting it too crudely for some, but the picture on the left was infinitely preferable in virtually every way than the one on the right. And what we see here, this is Nazis and this is Hitler, right? Marching in Paris and France. And then we have this picture that was from the Olympics in France, right? Where you had this kind of mocking of the Lord's Supper, of the Last Supper, and basically, this like trans people and this kind of perverse sacrilegious thing. Okay. Let's explain what the problem is with this. And we're going to use the Bible to kind of parse this out, but let's talk about the left, right, in a distinct form of error. The left basically has an upside down, a completely morally bankrupt system of morality, right? It's like the Stranger Things, the upside down world, right? It's the opposite world. For the left, the good is bad and the bad is good, right? You have some perverse sexual lifestyle. Love is love, right? You hold to a traditional view of sexuality. You're a bigot, right? That's hate. So love is the perversion and hate is the upholding of the moral standard that God set, right? That's the left. What is the left? What do they want to do? They want to protect the criminal illegal aliens in our country. And they also at the same time want to demonize the ICE agent who's trying to get rid of illegal immigrants, right? So in their mind, the people enforcing the existing law are the thugs, and the people who are breaking into our country and extorting our country for its resources, taking advantage of the U.S. taxpayer, those are the good guys. So you see on the left, you basically have a completely upside down moral system. And what the left has done is basically outed themselves as completely insane. So anyone with just a rudimentary moral compass, that one that is not completely singed or seared with a hot iron, as the Bible talks about, where God gives some people over to do what is not convenient and having their conscience seared. So this is the reprobate. If you're not a complete reprobate, you can recognize that the left has completely lost their mind. Okay. But what about people like Tucker? What about what we just watched here, where Tucker is literally just a few years ago explaining why Maduro is such an evil force in the world. And now he's talking about, Maduro, they're the most socially conservative country in South America. Venezuela, they banned gay marriage. Okay. And then you see this picture of, here again, I'll show it to you one more time. And then you see this picture of the Nazis taking over Europe, taking over France, is better than the sacrilege that we see on the right. Okay. So a murderous regime, right? A regime that would have happily slaughtered, put to death hundreds of millions of people. They would have happily, we know that they would have done this because this is what Stalin and Lenin, this is what they did in Soviet Russia. You know, Hitler, Lenin, Stalin. These are the same kinds of people. Mao Zedong, Pol Pot. These people literally in the 20th century, they killed hundreds of millions of people. That's not an exaggeration. Those types of regimes, they're saying, well, at least they don't tolerate sexual immorality. Okay, so let me explain to you something. Sexual immorality is bad, but murdering tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people, that's worse. That's worse. I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to assert that without even qualifying it. That's worse. And let me give you the key to decoding this sort of error. Jesus said something important. He said about certain people, he said about scribes and Pharisees, he says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you strain out a gnat and you swallow a camel." What does that mean? You strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. It means that you make a big deal out of small things, and things that should be really, really important, you ignore them. You strain out a gnat, right? It's like, I have to strain this gnat out. I just can't swallow it. And then something that literally should be impossible to swallow, you swallow it like it's a Tic Tac. So you see, the key to understanding the sort of error that Tucker and other people like him, their error is not that they have an upside down moral compass. These people believe that the things that you think are immoral, they also think they're immoral. Okay? It's not like the left. They don't say good is evil and evil is good. What they do is they have a complete inability to properly sort moral issues. When Jesus said to them, he said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you strain out a gnat and swallow a camel." And then he said to them, "You tithe of mint and cumin, but you ignore the weightier matters of the law." You tithe of mint and cumin. Mint and cumin was like these small little herbs. You could barely even weigh them, right? And the way you had to tithe was that you had to take a tenth of it by weight. And so mint and cumin, I mean, these little herbs, you could barely, it's so light you can barely weigh it. I don't know if you've had one of those digital scales, one of those digital food scales in your kitchen, and then it says, this calls for 1 gram of dry yeast, right? And it's just like 1 gram of dry yeast, that barely registers on my scale, right? And then imagine if you had to take 1 gram and then you had to take 1/10 of the 1 gram, right? It's ridiculous. A milligram, right? Or a centigram, whatever it is. Just think about that. Think about the tediousness that it required to tie the mint and cumin. But he said, but then you ignore the weightier matters of the law. Like, for example, when he said, he's like, you're going to sit there and talk about, hey, you know, you're going to tie the mint and cumin. But then he says, but the Bible also says, honor your father and mother. And said, but you say, oh, well, I can't support my parents in their old age, you know, because my little extra bit of money that has to go to the temple. It's Corbin. So it says you got it backwards. You have the wrong priorities. So when you look at someone like Tucker, and he's sitting here excusing basically a mass murdering thug who's exporting drugs all over the world to finance his diseased regime, right? The people want to vote him out. He won't leave. The people who oppose him, he has them killed. But he's sitting there like, oh, but they don't support gay marriage, so why do you think? And we'll talk another time about why this sort of thing, this sort of pathology, is prevalent amongst people like Tucker Carlson. You take a Dave Smith, for example. That's another example. Obviously, Megyn Kelly. There are a lot of people who cannot properly sort moral issues. So I think it's important to understand why Tucker and those of his ilk are so dangerous. We are going to talk a little bit more in the weeks to come. We're going to continue to ignore Candace. Why? Because she's, we don't want to give her any attention. The more attention we give her, the more we keep her fire burning. But we're going to talk about these issues. I think these things are important. We're going to talk about Tucker, and we're going to talk about this. I think every one of you needs to understand what's happening in Venezuela. If you don't, I'm going to have some information for you. I think everyone needs to understand how important what's happening in Minneapolis and what's happening with these ICE agents. I think President Trump is on the verge of declaring an insurrection. And by the way, let me know if you've been following that situation. Can someone explain to me how what they're doing in Minneapolis, how that's not an insurrection? Can anyone explain to me how that's not an insurrection? I just find that so bizarre. And so I pray that President Trump invokes the Insurrection Act. I think that, Tim Walz needs to be in prison. I think Timothy, whatever his name is, Frey, or whoever the mayor is in that diseased city called Minneapolis, I think they need to go to prison. They're thugs and criminals. So anyway, yes. I think there's a lot of good information. There's a lot of non-candy information that I think is super important. How about this? I don't know if you guys have been following this, but recently the Supreme Court kind of heard final arguments for men participating in women's sports, i.e. transgenders in women's sports. And I think the Supreme Court is going to finally rule on that. We're going to finally be rid of men invading women's spaces. There are lots and lots of good developments and things that are going to impact our lives in very meaningful ways. I think we're seeing the final death knell of the transgenderism craze. So I, for one, am quite encouraged by a lot of things that we're seeing. But I do think there are lots of things, lots of pitfalls, lots of landmines coming up in 2026 that we want to keep aware of. So you definitely want to stay locked into Todd Thinks. Also, I got to give a little plug here. If you haven't noticed here, I did enable memberships on this channel. And there's two different tiers. There's what I call big thinkers and deep thinkers. And this is going to give me an idea to give me an opportunity to go deeper on some issues that that we haven't been able to go deep on. But one of the things is AI music. I don't know if you guys. Now I'm just kind of rambling here because I'm just curious of what you guys think. How many of you put a comment in the chat? What do we want to put in the chat? Just type put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever listened to AI music and enjoyed it. Okay, that's a 1. Put a 2 in the chat if you just would never. 1 in the chat if you've listened to AI music and you liked it. 2 in the chat if you would never. Or other, right? Just type whatever you want about AI music. But I'm curious to know if any of you have ever listened to AI music. Two, would never. Would never. Very interesting. Let me ask you, okay, Gary's got a 1. Okay. 1, but it's definitely the minority of times. Also, Blue Arrow, you're a programmer. I like it. Gary says, I know it's wrong. Okay, so I have to. So I'm going to give you a primer for this because this is interesting. Because I'm going to introduce you guys to something. I did a video, and I did it only for my members, where I talked about AI music. And I think I was in the 2 category, right? I was like, I would never. But I have to say, I think that there is a proper use for it. Okay, so let me just tell you how I think about it, and then you can let me know if you're tracking with me. Okay. First of all, I have to tell you the whole story. You might have heard like a few weeks ago that there's an artist. I'm going to put an artist in quotes, in air quotes, right? Because it's not a real person. It's an AI artist, right? There's an artist called Solomon Ray. And Solomon Ray actually was on, basically, he reached the top of the Christian charts, even passing people like Forrest Frank and stuff like that. And I found out about it because Forrest Frank was lamenting the fact that there was AI music out there that was at the top of the Christian charts. Now, there's obviously... there's some issues with that, right? Because we're talking about Christian music, right? Christian music is supposed to be primarily to God, but for people. Christian music is an offering to God, but it's for people, right? And in some cases, it's to God and for God, right? It's for God and to God in worship, right? But Christian music, Christian-based music is not necessarily always worship, right? Because there's Christian themed music that isn't necessarily worship. So I was in the camp where I was just like, I'm sorry, I would never. Okay, I'm just not interested in fake music. But many of you may not know this, but I am actually a multi-instrumentalist. Okay, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and I play guitar, I play bass, I play keys, I write songs. I actually, back in 2014, I released a full-length album. And I have been writing worship songs for many, many years. I write music. Okay. Now I was just scrolling on Facebook, and I saw some guy he says, listen, y'all, I have to tell you this. I wrote this song some time ago, and I did the song, and he sang the song, or he let us hear him singing the song. And then he said, y'all, listen, I wrote this song, I composed it, and then I uploaded it to this app called Suno. Suno is an AI music generating app. And he said, now listen to what it gave back. And what it gave back was the most beautiful vocal rendition of his song. Now, mind you, I just want to say this. This wasn't a song written by robots, written by the AI. It was his song. He fully composed it. The melody, the chord progression, everything about it was done by a human. But because he was not a great singer, when he performed it, it didn't have the same impact. But he put it up on Suno, on this app called Suno, and Suno will basically give you a vocalist, right? They'll take your track, they'll basically reproduce it, kind of put some little polish and sheen on it so it sounds kind of like industry. Anyone who knows about music, you got to get your song mixed and mastered, and it's got to have that certain sheen, that certain polish that you hear with songs on the radio. Actually, it's very difficult to get that radio-ready sound. And it costs a lot of money to get someone to mix and master it, right? So it came back with that sort of sheen, that sort of radio-ready polish, and the most beautiful vocals I've ever heard, right? It was like, completely, in other words, if you listen to it, you couldn't tell that it was not a human vocalist, right? But they were very, very clean, very beautiful vocals. And then I said, wow. Now that was interesting. So now I want you to tell me how you feel about this. If you know the person that wrote the music, if you know it was done by a human, but you're listening to basically an AI performance of the music, so it wasn't created by the bots, but an AI performance, does that change the way you think about it? I'm just curious about that. Let me know in the chat. Does that change the way you think about it if you know that the song was not written and composed by an algorithm? It wasn't prompted like Chat GPT. And by the way, the Solomon Ray thing that I was talking about, that's exactly what it was. The Solomon Ray, when I say it's exactly what it was, I mean that as far as I understand, it was AI prompted. So in other words, there's a human person behind it, but he didn't write the music. He didn't write the chords, or he didn't compose the chord progression or the rhythm or the melody. He basically told the machine, I want it to sound like this, and I want it to be about that. And then the AI wrote the song and just completely prompted the music. So I have to say, for me, it's a 100% no. I'm not interested in Christian music, in particular, written by robots. I'm just not interested in that. I don't care, even if it's good, I can't get into it. So I get that. But I'm curious to know what you think about that latter situation. All right, so Gary said, it's AI assisted, not fully bot made. More human directed, the more meaningful. Okay. Not too sure yet. I don't want to be fooled. Okay, so that's the other thing. Okay, this is an excellent comment, Carmen, because that's the other part of it, right? If you are listening to AI generated vocals, right, and you think it's a human, no one. It's just like if you call the doctor's office, right, and someone human answers the phone, or someone that sounds like a human answers the phone, and then you realize after you get off the phone you were talking to a machine, that's weird, right? No matter how it's like if you've ever used Chat GPTs, they have a audio version of Chat GPT where you can talk to it like you would talk to a regular person. You can have like a continuing conversation with it, and it sounds very, very human. Like if you were just listening to it as a recording, you would think it was a human. There's literally no way you couldn't tell. There's no way that you could tell that it wasn't a human, because it has everything built into it, even the crutch words and and the ums and the things that humans do. Machines don't have to pause and say and and these little phrases that are uniquely human in the way we communicate. Well, they actually build all that into the way the ChatGPT bot talks. So it sounds like a real person. But the thing is, you're talking to a robot, so it doesn't creep you out. What really creeps you out is if you think you're talking to a real person and then you find out that you weren't. That's what's creepy. Right? So, okay, so I'm going to do something that I hadn't planned on doing. I think I'm going to let you guys hear something. I'm just going to let you hear just a little piece of it. Because I have to tell you, I'm just going to keep it 100, as the kids like to say. When I saw that situation, I had to know for myself. I said, I've got a whole treasure trove of songs that I've written. And I really want to know. I just really want to know what my songs would sound like. So I might, I'm gonna give you guys a sneak peek, because I did it. I admit it. I took one of my songs, or I took several of my songs that I had recorded, and I uploaded them, and I said, what would this sound like? And I have to tell you guys, what it came back with was pretty good. All right, so let me see if I can do this. Let me see.
Blessed are they who dwell in your house, forever praising you. When we see you, fix our eyes upon your face, beholding your beauty and grace. Lord, we know
So I just wanted to give you a sample of it. Now, I want to tell you a couple of things that I'm thinking about, and the way that I'm intending on using this tool. So I see my guy Blue Arrow is pretty spooked by it. I would be interested to know. One other thing too, I'm curious about too. Blue Arrow is that have you ever created any music? Do you do any? I don't know if you're back here. He said let him know when it's over. It's over now, but I'm curious to know if you've ever actually created any music. Because I would be curious to know what your thoughts are. So just to be clear about what I just heard, I saw somebody said, "This is incredible." Yes, that was exactly my that was exactly my reaction. So just to be clear, I wrote that song. I composed the melody. I did the chord progression. I recorded the song in my home studio, and I uploaded it as a reference for the AI. And I said, okay, I'd like to have a female vocalist sing it. So I could make it a female vocalist. I could make it a male vocalist. And as a person who is a songwriter, now I'm in a situation where for the first time ever, I can find artists who might be looking for songs that I can give them a polished demo of what I wrote. And for anyone who is familiar with how the music industry works, is that if you're a songwriter and you can't produce a polished demo, you're just not going to be able to sell your songs. And producing a polished demo of that quality, what you just heard, if I were to find a vocalist and go to a studio and have that recorded, and then find and get a band of professional musicians to play the guitar, to play the keys, to play the drums, and then a professional audio engineer to mix and master it, and all of that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just for one record. Okay, this is hard to do. So this is my thought about it, and you're welcome to feel however you want to feel about it, but this is really this really closes the gap between, and just a random independent songwriter, somebody like me, and big, labels and studios that they can produce these songs. A lot of times their songs aren't really that good. What you're actually hearing is, it's so well performed and so well produced that it sounds good, but the song itself maybe doesn't have a lot of depth. It doesn't, the songwriting is not great. And some of the stuff that's passing for art, quote unquote, is, it's being done by humans, but it's still not very good. So I hope to partner with actual real musicians and real artists to have this music recorded. But I was curious. By the way, you guys are privileged to be the first people publicly that I have let hear a little bit of my personal music. So I appreciate you guys being a sounding board for me. But I would love for songs like that to be sang in church, not to be to put the AI bots out there to release it. But for me, I'm just telling you how it is for me. I'm okay listening to this music when I know that there was a human behind it, that it wasn't made by robots. It wasn't written by robots. I wrote that song. So it's very human to me. And honestly, my brother, who's a pastor, I sent him that song. He said, I've been really listening to the song in my personal time, my quiet time. The song is based on being in the presence of God. And, I didn't let you guys hear the chorus, but the name of the song is called "It's Good to Be Here," and it's based on when Peter saw the Lord transfigured on the mount. James and John were with Jesus, and he became radiant and his face was shining. And Peter said, Lord, it's good for us to be here to see you in your glory. And that's what the song is based on. So anyway, I'm rambling here. I'm way over. I talked about only 2 of the things I said I was going to talk about out of the 5, and now I'm talking about AI music. Hey, but listen, like I said, a lot of stuff. I hadn't been live in a while. I like to do this every once in a while. I got to be honest with you. Going live is not my favorite thing to do, but I like to do it because I like to connect with you guys, and I like to connect with my audience. I think Blue Arrow's gonna. I'm gonna lose him as a subscriber. He's gonna be like, Todd thinks is playing demon robot music. I don't mean to laugh, Blue Arrow, but you had a pretty strong reaction to it. I'm not. Frankly, I'm not interested in convincing anyone that how they should feel about it. I just thought I would share it. You can feel about it however you like. I think there are different ways to see things. All right, my friend. Anything else? Oh, I got another comment. It says, amazingly beautiful song. The voice is angelic. You should be very proud of this. You're correct about the cost. My grandson is a musician. The process is very, very long and time consuming. Absolutely. 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 Girls can. Oh, Blue Arrow. Sorry, I did not know that you were a lady. Girls can code. You know what, Blue Arrow? If we ever meet in person, I will let you go ahead and slap my face for being so presumptuous. Yes, Blue Arrow. I am sorry. Now I know that you are a lady. You have to admit your name is quite unisex, or it is quite ambiguous as far as the male female thing. I just presuppose, as you see an airplane, you think dudes. I don't know. It's blue. If you were Pink Arrow, I probably would have thought you were a girl, but that's also, maybe you think that's also sexist. I don't know. The more I talk, I'm putting my foot in my mouth. Thank you, though. Thank you for being not boy, not Democrat. Oh, of course, yeah. Please, not Democrat. Social constructs. Agreed. Yes. So but to put a bow on what I was talking about earlier is that for anyone who's ever created music, you realize that we've been, music is actually quite digital. We're in the era of auto-tune and pitch correction and musical instrument digital interface, which is called MIDI. And MIDI is basically, I think probably some of the classical pianists and guitar players would find it sacrilege that you can literally draw notes into a grid with a mouse, and you can create chords without having to be able to play a musical instrument. You can play, quote unquote, play guitars without being able to play a guitar because they got all these samples of guitars that sound fairly authentic, but they're not. You're not actually playing a guitar. So the question is, if you've ever listened to music with sampled digital instruments, do you think that's not good because it's not real instruments? It's not an actual piano. It's not an actual guitar. Not real drums. No, it's just something to think about. All right, good people. I see you all dwindling. I'm going to let you guys go. Until next time, my friends, God bless you. I will see you next time. And make sure you stay tuned because this week we're going to be talking about some good stuff. Stay tuned to the channel. Love you guys. Bless you. Shalom.